Hey guys, welcome back to the Betar Project. On this episode, we have James Robertson, also known as Rabs. We talk all things sports commentating, as well as the NRL. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. If you do, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Cheers, guys. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Happy to be on.
You want to quickly introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah. Do you want a formal introduction, informal,
Whatever, man. Full, yeah.
whatever? Most people know me as Rabs, but I am James Robertson. I don't really know what there is to say. Just a kid trying to live out the dream to be a commentator in the NRL.
How'd you find yourself getting into commentating?
Well, my interest in commentary was when would have been like 3 or 4. I have parents and family members saying like I was in the backyard, but didn't really have a lot of friends as a kid, like as a younger kid. So it was a lot of like playing tackle footy by myself in the backyard. But mostly just like calling the names of the players as well. So like I'd imagine I'm the 2003 Panthers and be like, Gower to Wesser and the inside-outside plays. And playing golf as well. I was like a massive fan of golf when I was younger. So Tiger Woods was a big inspiration. There was a part of me that, if I sort of stuck down that path, who knows, I might be playing in the PGA Tour or whatever. But first getting into commentary, like actually getting into it, was funnily enough when I started TAFE FC11.
Yeah.
So this opportunity came up where I was like, a friend of mine was like, oh, hey, we should go do this thing together. And I was a bit skeptical at first because I really only did it because I wasn't really doing anything after school. Like I had a pretty bad time in 2014. A few things happened personally in my family life, and then a few things sort of popped up right at the start of 2015. And I thought, hey, look, at the end of the day, this is something to do. It's sport related, so obviously I'm going to be interested in it. So it was really jumping into the unknown. I didn't really know what was going to entail in that course. And looking back on it now, I mean, what was the worst thing in the end? I wouldn't take anything back. But it was Shane Elford himself. I sat there with him and Renee, and he said, oh, what are you interested, that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, well, I want to be a sports commentator. Like, he asked why I was doing the course in the first place. And then I never forget it. He asked me to give me a play. And like within a split second, I was just like, on the last tackle, Seguiara gives it off to Moylan. Moylan skips around a defender. A cut-out pass for Mansour, and he's in the corner for the pit. And like, because when we did the interview, we were like overlooking, what was it called at the time? Centrebet or Sportsbet?
I think it was Centrebet.
It's been so many name changes, but I was just overlooking the stadium. So just like in a split second, it just instantly clicked. And he's like, wow. Like, and for someone like, I know he hasn't been in commentary, but for someone that's played the sport of NRL for, the better part of a decade, or he's been in and around the sport, for someone like that to say, wow, to someone like me, that's just do this for a bit of fun. That was pretty good feeling.
Yeah. Who inspires you? Obviously, Rabs Warren.
Well, that's where the nickname came from. But I was looking at pieces of my commentary that I've done over the past, just like there was one game that I did a couple of years ago, and someone said that they liked my commentary style. I'm like, oh, who do I remind you of? And they said, that's the thing, you don't remind me of anyone. And looking back at pieces of commentary that I've done, I think the thing that works in my favor is like back in the day, there weren't a lot of commentary styles or like people to look at and be like, I want to be like this guy. I want to be like this guy. And for someone that watches as much sport as I do, as much league as I do, there's so many commentators out there now. And I feel like I've taken bits and pieces, not stolen, but just like trying to replicate what they do. So like the intensity of Ray Warren, the comedic side of Andrew Voss, and like the verbiage that Mark Braybrook used to use. So like taking bits and pieces of different commentators and just trying to form my sort of own style,
your own spin on it.
Which is, yeah, that's it. Like I don't want to try and copy Ray Warren, but I want to try and sort of replicate in a way the intensity that he uses in my style of commentary, whilst also doing it in my own way.
Yeah. What was the first game you ever commentated?
Official game, it was 2018, right at the start. I'm trying to think who it was. It might have been, I think it was at St. Mary's Stadium. The Panthers were involved, but it was an opportunity came through Country Rugby League. And in this day and age of social media, 20 years ago, I'd have to go out and like fight and claw for an opportunity like that. But a chance sort of presented itself to me. A mate said to me, there's a chance for a commentary gig. And that's something that obviously he thought I would be interested in. So I emailed the guys and I'm like, hey, I want to be a commentator. Is there a chance for me to sort of showcase what I think I have? I've really never commentated in front of a live audience before, only sort of what I do on the PlayStation, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they gave me, luckily enough, they gave me a chance. And honestly, like looking back on it, I think that was my best year to date. I think quality-wise, I've gotten better, but just like the excitement and it was weird because obviously I was nervous, but I felt like I overcame the nerves very quickly. It was just learning all the players' names. Like obviously, if I was to call it the NRL right now, I feel pretty comfortable because I know a lot of the players. But doing like 16 and 18s reps, you don't know any of the guys, let alone like you literally know none of the guys. So it's hard to instantly come in and go, okay, I've got to learn 34 players' names. Plus, you got to learn what they look like, what they run like, because I don't use binoculars. I don't have any stats in front of me or anything like that. I literally only got the team sheet and just what I can see on the field. And sometimes you're perched pretty far away. So I think that was the most difficult thing. But besides that, it was at the back end of 2015 when I was jumping up in the commentary booth at Panthers Stadium. It wasn't like an official commentary gig or whatever. It's when FC11 took on the Panthers reserve grade side, and the teacher goes, "Oh, do you think you could do some commentary?" I'm like, "What, over the intercom?" Yeah, why not? I'm like, "That they're playing," and I did it for like 5 minutes, and I was embarrassed. I thought, "Oh, these guys are going to hate it." And then you always remember those people that sort of support you through those times. So like that's the first time that my mum's heard me commentate in front of like people instead of up in my bedroom making a ruckus. So I think she was, although it wasn't like official commentary, she was like sort of proud of me that I got a chance like that. And I don't know, it's sort of weird, but it's funny to look back on now.
Yeah, like it would be a super proud moment, like especially like you've commentated a fair few games now. Like she would be pretty proud of you.
Yeah, and I as much as I try to share the experiences that I'm having, it's like those people that are really close to me that they sort of get to see sort of hard side of it. So obviously it's all voluntary work. And the longest drive I've done, I drove to Wagga Wagga a couple of years ago, there and back. Obviously I got to stay in Wagga Wagga, which was an awesome opportunity. But I tell a couple of my friends and they're like, so let me get this straight. You're driving to Wagga Wagga to do a game and come back. You're not getting paid for it. And I'm like, man, it's not with that. Honestly, if you ask me right now, if you work for the NRL and you said to me, hey, we've got a gig to call, I don't know, Sunday afternoon, 6:30 Sunday night in the NRL, would you take it for free? Absolutely, 100% every day of the week. I don't care how much money I need to spend in terms of travel and everything. If I got to call on Fox Sports for free, I would absolutely 100% do it. That's how much I love commentary. It's awesome.
Yeah, I've been following you over the last few years, seeing your videos. Man, you're pretty good. I like your commentary. A lot of energy you bring.
I really appreciate that. I don't know if you've heard of the 10,000 hour rule or the thing behind 10,000. Yeah, so like I feel like I get better and better with each time that I do it. But then, funnily enough, we've been speaking about tape. I actually pulled out the art books the other day, and the 10,000 hour thing was in there last night. I was reading. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, okay, during this weird time, like I've sort of been practicing here and there, but like for me to really just get better and keep getting better, I need to, keep practicing. It is a passion, but in this time, it's sort of hard to not find time, but just other things are on your mind. So I think something like that could keep me busy and keep me focused on what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah. So how do you go about actually practicing, like memorizing players' names and all that?
Well, honestly, like it's hard because well, what I do for work, like at the moment with the stats, I think that helps a bit. But the fact also being immersed in the sport for I'm only 23 and I feel like I've been watching the sport my whole life. Like I started when I was 6 or 7. I don't want to, say, oh, I started when I was 2. Some people do, but I was 7. It was 2003. Watched I was like, oh, Penrith, that's my team. Originally, I was going to go for the Raiders, funnily enough, because my old man had put on Penrith versus the Raiders, and the Raiders had absolutely pumped the Panthers. I'd be like, that's my team. And he's like, no, it's not. I go for Penrith, so you're going for Penrith. So that's how I became a Penrith fan, really. But and it wasn't even after the grand. Like I don't know. My dad picked my team, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get to learn all the players and all that. But yeah, once you've watched a sport or immersed yourself in a sport for so long, everything just comes second nature to you. So although some of the names are a bit hard, 2 examples that if I can remember off the top of my head, Jeffrey Siolaoa Afoya and Tavita Aroha Tuinalvai. So two of the guys that I loved calling. But you look at a name, you're like, okay, so before a game, if I'm organized and everything, maybe 2 days before a game, I'll get the team list, I'll write everything down. I like having everything on my phone or whatever, but I enjoy writing the list down. I'll see if I have my so this book, right? This is all the NRL team lists from round 1 through to round 4 this year. So although I could just as easily go onto NRL.com and look at them, it's something I enjoy to have to write down every Tuesday or every Wednesday and cross off the names as the players sort of come out of the side, just to have that sort of just to have it, honestly.
Yeah.
It's something I enjoy. So I sort of do that. I'll go through the names, and it's because a lot of them are Polynesian descent. It's okay, although I could say it the way that, I would typically say it, I've got to try and respect or try and learn a way that it like the native tongue would be. So it's a lot of practice. And again, like I said earlier, coming into new games where you don't know new players, it's pretty much you get to the ground 40 minutes before and you're looking at both teams warming up and you're like, okay, so Byron Ayolapatu, he's in 13, that's what he looks like. It's just being vigilant and trying to get as much information as you can before the actual game. And then in terms of the actual commentary, at the start of the game, it's a bit more casual. Obviously, if it's a final, you want the intensity to be up there as well. But yeah, it's just about clearing your mind besides everything that you know about rugby league. So you just focus on the game 100%. And everything just comes naturally. I suppose that just makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, I give you credit, man. Some of those names, tough to pronounce.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are born to do what they set out to do. So hopefully this is something I can do for a long time, but I feel like everything that I sort of do, it just comes naturally. Not easy, but just I sort of pick it up pretty quickly. So, someone like you might be like, oh, these names are hard to say, or how do you do it? And I've had a lot of people come up to me and ask how I do it. But to me, honestly, it's just a matter of reading a name or seeing a play, and it just, whatever comes out, comes out. If it's good or bad. There's been games where I'm my own harshest critic. I'll look at a play and, my mom or a friend will be like, oh, that was a really good play. And I'm like, yeah, it was a good play, but I could have called it better. I'm pretty harsh. So
yeah, well, that's how you grow, eh?
Yeah, that's it. I know I can't take myself too seriously. I want a mixture of that, but also realizing that even if I have the best game, there's been games where I'm like, yep, I absolutely fucking nailed that, but I don't want to rest on that game. I want to go into the next game and be like, look, I nailed that game, but I need to nail the next game and then the next game and, keep on getting better.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement.
That's it.
So, what's the highest grade you've commentated thus far?
Well, technically New South Wales Cup. So there was a game. Was it? So 2015. Honestly, it was probably the biggest year for me in terms of like turning my life around up until this year. Like, and we'll get back. We'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, back into 2014, like that was pretty low for me. Like, I don't want to like get into too much detail, but I wasn't living at home. Just like wrong mind space. Just really didn't give a shit about anything. And then 2015, a few opportunities came up. I went from having no job to having about 3 to 4 jobs. So I worked as just like for free for Hawks Through Radio. And there was a chance someone pulled out, they were sick, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to call New South Wales Cup? Like, you just could be a color commentator." And we were only doing it from the studio, but I was like, "Oh, here we go, calling New South Wales Cup." And yeah, there was a play that happened, and again, like just watching games and knowing players, it doesn't matter what grade it is. If it's like New South Wales Cup, Ron Massey, I pay attention to a lot of football. That, like, I'd be surprised how many players I know. Like, I know quite a lot of players, like from this modern era. And yeah, the lead commentator, he's like calling the player, whatever. He's like, "Oh, there's a player down in back play." I'm like, "Oh, it's Adrian Davis." I just instantly jumped in. I'm like, "Yeah, I know the player." Blah blah blah. And yeah, like after that, I didn't really. I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool." Got to call a game in New South Wales Cup, and then afterwards, I had mum call me, dad text me, a few friends messaged me, and they're like, "Dude, that was awesome. Like, I know you weren't the lead commentator, but you sounded like you really knew your shit." So, although it was like a one-time thing, I guess you could count that as like the highest grade that I've called. But lead calling, yeah, just the stuff they do with the under 23s New South Wales Rugby League sort of took over Country Rugby League. I don't know if that's too much of a thing anymore. It's just like about upgrading and like building out New South Wales Rugby League. So it's still technically in each other, but so you got the 16s, the 18s. I did the 14s and 15s at the back end of last year as well. And then you had the Ladies League tag in the first year, I think it was 2018. They started doing the Women's Rugby League. So I got to call Kezi Apps, Jess Surgis, like a few Gillaroos. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, so in terms of like players at a high representative level, probably the girls. That was Panatani, I think, play. I'm a bit unfamiliar with like when they come to play the lower grades. I'm like, I feel like I should know you, but I don't know. Kira Dibb was another one, and she went on to play for New South Wales and Australia last year as well. And then the 23s, which personally that's my favourite. So the first game that I remember like absolutely nailing out of the park was Monaro Colts versus the Illawarra South Coast Dragons semi-final in 2018, and I think Monaro put on like 40 or 50 points, but like all these guys, just like seeing them play, and like it was just their attack was unbelievable. I'm like, honestly, if I was like a fan, this is my team. So like 2018, 2019, and then 2020 before COVID started. Yeah, that was my team. Just like every time I got to call the Monaro Colts under 23s, I knew all the players, and I was like, "Oh man, here we go."
So is it a paid gig or still doing it for free?
Oh, no. Yeah, completely free. So I've sort of tried to reach out to the streaming services because all this is obviously not paid. And then, you know, things haven't worked out. Obviously, recently I was going to try and get some more work this year. But yeah, all completely free. So it's, you know, my own money to get to the ground, to get back. In previous years, they have sort of put me up for accommodation, especially when it's pretty far, like Wagga Wagga or Harden, or, you know, out there in the sticks.
Yeah, well, fuck, that's good commitment, man. You're very passionate about commentating.
Yeah. Well, I love the drive as well. Like, I like being social or whatever, but like getting in that car, listening to music, stuff like that, you know, take my mind off things for about 4 or 5 hours. Like, honestly, 5 hours to me feels like a trip down the road. Like it's not too far.
So talk to me about this year. How much of a setback has that been on your career?
On the career, it's been a bit of a setback. So like we were meant to be going into semi-finals for that. Yeah, they connected everything up. So 16s and 18s is Laurie Daly Cup, Andrew Johns Cup. You have 5 rounds. You're in 2 pools. The top 2 teams of each pool go through the semi-finals. They play off each other. You have semi-finals, and then the big grand final day, which happened last couple of years. It's happened in Mudgee, so I'd assume that's where it would happen again. And then round 4 of those competitions, the 23s and the women start. So they've only got 2 rounds. There's no pools. It's just 10 teams battling. And then the top 4 teams go through. And then you have your semi-finals and the finals. So the last 4 weeks, there's 4 games back to back to back to back. So that gets pretty strenuous.
Yeah.
But obviously that's been hard, but I've got to be honest, man, like as weird as it is to say, I think this whole thing has been the real kick in the ass that I needed. I don't mean to go off topic, but there's been like a challenge that I've had a lot of my life. So like it's been great to focus on all this professional stuff, but I've had a bit of a weight problem pretty much all my life. So like I said before, 2015, probably the best year up until this point in terms of like I was going to TAFE. I had everything sort of laid out. Like I had a lot of work, good social life. Everything was pretty, especially from where I came from, everything was looking up. And it's weird because like doing TAFE and everything, like all the knowledge has always been in there. It's just like about the motivation and it's just pure laziness, really. Like I said the other day, I'm like, honestly, if I ever lack, I can't remember the word I used, but like if I ever complacency, if I ever show complacency ever again, and I'm saying this to you, man, like if you see me show complacency, drive to my place and kick me in the ribs, because like the me 2 months ago and for like the last 3 to 4 years, honestly, I don't want to be that person ever again. This whole COVID thing, like everyone's going to react to it differently, but I've just taken the time to go, no, I've got to do this in my own way. And it sort of started where, it's been like my whole family, like we have weight problems very different. Like my brother's he's quite skinny. I wouldn't say he's anorexic, but like he's got his own sort of like, I don't know, he's pretty funny around food and stuff like that. But mum and dad, they've had their weight problems, and it just like it stemmed from like the whole family just either being too little or too big or whatever, being like super conscious of their weight. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm just going to count calories, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I might join, just like not even thinking about weight loss or anything like that. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to check it out. And just like seeing how much again, when we did TAFE, this is the sort of stuff that we did. It was just like second nature to us. And then I was like getting back into the groove of that. And then I started seeing, I'm like, oh, I lost a kilo. And it was never meant to be a weight loss journey or anything like that. It was just, oh, this is going to be a bit of fun while, maybe a month or later we go back to work and whatever. But now, March 22, I stopped work. I've been back at work for the last week. But since then I've lost 12.5 kilos.
Shit.
And it's still a long way to go. Like my first sort of big goal weight is like the weight I was back in 2015, which is 108. But I look at the numbers and I'm like, why did I ever let myself get to that weight? But it's not even about that anymore. Like you can't focus on the past. You're like, okay, this is the weight I am now, and this is the weight I want to be. So like you completely leave the past behind. Yeah, you can go back and reminisce and be like, oh, this is what weight I was. But like, I feel like the more you look back in the past, the more you're like, like you start questioning yourself. You start being like, I don't want to get into that mind space again and whatever. And there's been days over the past couple of months where I've had bad days, but it's not about, it's about not dwelling on those bad days and just focusing on the next day ahead. So like, I could have a bad day today and be like, oh man, I had a bad day yesterday, and just like lay in bed all day. But you can't do that. You just got to get out and be like, look, I had a bad day yesterday and that's fine because I'm going to have a good day today and the next day and the next day and just focus on that. So sorry to spin off on that little tangent, but just something that sort of brought up.
Yeah, I feel you. Like for me, it's like some days I just can't be bothered training or whatever, but it's just about getting in a good routine. Like I get up early, go for my walks, and then try and go for a run and train in the afternoon. But some days I just can't be fucked, to be honest.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like look, the last 6 months I've seen you sort of post a bit more, and I saw your podcast with Isaac John. It was really fun. And when you said you're a bit introverted, I'm like, what? Nick Betar introverted? No way. Like, he's outgoing as, but like seeing you do these things, and it's like in a certain space you're like really friendly and social and whatever, but in this space where you're not as comfortable, like obviously you're becoming more comfortable now. You're pretty shy and like, oh, I don't want to step a foot wrong, or like, I want to do this way, but I'm not too sure how to. But yeah, like every morning I'll see your Instagram or whatever, and like I'm going for my walk. I'm like, fuck, all right, Rabs, get out of the house. You got to go for it. Nick's going for a walk, so you got to go out for a walk too.
Yeah.
And I really wish I mean, I can. I've done it before, getting up at like 5 or 6 or whatever. I've done it over the last couple of months, but sometimes I wake up, I'm like, oh, bed's warm. And I'm like, no, get up. Yeah, the biggest, honestly, the biggest step, and it's so small, but the biggest step in pretty much anyone that's like got to have a positive mindset is just getting out of bed.
Exactly.
Like the moment you get out of bed, that's it. You've won half the battle for the day. You get out of bed, you make your bed, you shower, shave, whatever you got to do, and half the battle is won. It's just about continuing that momentum into the whole day.
Yeah, like COVID, like it's been bad, but at the same time, I'm very grateful that it happened. Like it's given me plenty of time to just focus on myself and podcasting and all that shit. So I'm very grateful for it. And I feel like it's the same for you as well, like getting to focus on yourself and your health and all that.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like, the more you do these podcasts, like that's why I really appreciate that I got to come on. Like it doesn't matter if it's with Isaac John or myself or whatever. Like it doesn't matter how big the person is that comes on. Like it's obviously about them and their story, but it's about you and getting better as a podcaster and getting better at asking questions and that stuff, getting more comfortable. I feel like the more podcasts that you do, it's going to be a better thing for yourself. And like, if I know that like people watching it isn't necessarily it's not like, oh, I want to have 1 million people watching this podcast. It's about the actual stories and whatever. But you being more confident is going to get people like, at the end of this podcast, when it's ready to go up, I'm going to share this to everyone and be like, hey, look, just listen to this guy speak. And, this is about his podcast and whatever. And the more podcasts you do, the more confident you get. I think the more people are going to come over and be like, hey, this guy, like, he's a good podcaster. And obviously the stories that you're bringing out of people as well.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like when I first started, I put a few podcasts out and then people start messaging me and like they want to come on. I was like, oh, sweet. And like every podcast I put out, I have someone message me wanting to come on. Like I got another one to do after this, 2 on Monday. Like ever since I've started, it just keeps growing, man, and growing in confidence as well.
I'll tell you what, I did 2 podcasts previously and we never had guests. We might have had like 1 or 2 in like, oh, hey, you're a mate, you want to jump on. But like when I saw you got Isaac John on, I'm like, fuck, this is the real deal. Like this guy's not playing around. He's like, I'm going to get Isaac John. I don't care what anyone says. This is going to happen. It's going to be a great podcast. It was a really good listen. Like I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got another guest on the list that's going to be a big name too, possibly next week or the week after. So should be good.
Yeah, and it's good because like I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, look, like me especially probably a couple of years ago, I'd be like, oh, look at me, I'm a big shot. I got Isaac John on my podcast, but you're just like, oh, hey, it's just Isaac John, just another person, just want to hear his story and whatever. And I think that's the best thing. Like just you're being yourself. You're not trying to be bigger than you're not. Like, yeah, like awesome.
You listened to it, you would have seen how bloody nervous I was. But the confidence,
and it's so.
Yeah, the confidence.
Yeah, throughout the podcast.
Fuck.
Yeah, just like at the start, and it's so funny. Ice is just like, "Oh man, just be yourself." I'm like, Ice is like so confident, like not stuttering or anything like that. And I'm like, man, how does he do it? But like even throughout that whole podcast, I felt like you felt like 5-10 minutes in, I'm like, here we go. He's in the groove now. He's gotten a bit more confident.
Yeah, so that's why I'm just keen to keep pumping out podcasts and keep getting confident.
That's it.
So what's your driving factor in commentating?
Passion. Passion is the biggest driving factor in anything. And it's just about like, it's so hard I suppose in something like that, you for someone that's watched the sport for 15 years plus, you feel like you've learned all there is to know about rugby league. You've watched all there is to know. Like, I know with my stats job, the first year I did it, I was going home like, this is great. And I'm still like, this is great, but you can only do something for so long before it sort of wears off. Like, so the two job roles that I have, obviously I love the calling side of it when I get to do that. So calling the stats, but the graphical side of it, it's just like, clicking the dots. It's important, but I'm like, it's more or less repetition. Like, the set restarts came in this year. So the first game, I was like a bit scared. I was like, set restarts, it's going to be a bit faster. Like, it's going to be a bit troublesome. And then like 10 minutes in, I'm like, God, it's back to normal. But yeah, in terms of commentary, it's just that the more I get to do it, and like new players, like obviously it's scary the first time you set eyes on a new player, but I feel like it'd be the same for Bossy or Ray Warren or whatever. When the rookies come in, that's what is just great about this. Like, it's great to call the great plays with the great players like, Inglis, Thurston and Cronk or whatever, but with this new wave of like Pappenhausen and Dylan Brown and those guys, it's at that point, it's not about you being a commentator. It's about you watching, okay, Pappenhausen from debut all the way through. Like, I was saying to a mate, since the time I've watched, I think Cameron Smith may be another one. Like, those are the only players remaining from when I started watching football first. So, like, I've almost made it through a full generation of footballers. And then, like, if you start now from, like, the debutants maybe last year, like Pappenhausen, those sort of guys, you're going to watch Pappenhausen from his debut all the way through till I'm like 40, 45. And that's a second generation. It's about like, as soon as the player debuts and like you look and go, this guy's going to be something special, and just watching them grow throughout their career. I think that's it, like, as well as the actual commentating aspect, that's the most exciting part about like seeing a guy for the first time, seeing his talent, and maybe even like if they're just like a no frills player, seeing them work hard and get through to the top. So like, for example, someone like Chris Lewis, like I feel like if you're talented enough, you might debut at 18, 19, 20, but is it going to be the hard work that keeps you in first grade? Like in the case of Luke Lewis, who was in the NRL for 15 years, he had the talent, obviously, but he worked hard to keep going and, have a 15-year career. But, in the case of like Anthony Don, Chris Lewis, these guys that debut from like 25 to 27, it's, they might not be as talented, but they've fucking worked hard to get to the first grade. And, Anthony Don, who debuted at 25, 26, and was he now 31, 32? He's been in the league for a long time, sort of at the back end of his career, but he's worked hard for 7 years to get into first grade firstly, with guys that are probably a bit more talented than him, but also worked hard to stay at the top level.
Yeah, like Chris Lewis last night, I never heard of him before, and then he come on the field. I was like, who's this bloke?
Yeah, and there's so many guys like that, Damien Cook's another one. I mean, I think he's more on the talent side, but just like waiting for an opportunity. And I think of someone like Brandon Smith, who he's played, almost 50 first grade games, but hooker being his best position and being stuck behind Cameron Smith for so long. And then Harry Grant probably coming back to the song, like, is Harry Grant going to be the first choice hooker? Is it going to be, look, I want to be dummy half here, but if I can't win the spot, like, I might have to go elsewhere. So,
yeah, it would be awesome to call that, like, especially a player making their debut, say at like 27, with a great backstory, like you bringing
that's it,
excitement to the experience. Like, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and you feel like people like that almost, but like the Titans haven't really been that successful over the last decade or the decade that they've been in the NRL. But I feel like Anthony Don is a player that you think of, you're like, yeah, he's Titans through and through. Like, and it's not about the crazy plays or whatever, but it's just he's a guy that's represented the Titans and he's worked hard to get there and he's sort of kept his spot there. So
yeah, he's an awesome player, man.
The Don star.
Yeah. So how did the ranks work? How do you get to the top in commentating?
I'm still trying to figure that out every day. It's honestly who you know and like the opportunities that you can get. So someone that I worked with, I think it was last year, He did a lot of work for Central Coast Roosters, sort of Woy Woy area in 2019. I think he was their lead caller, Pete Jolly, who he's actually gotten a few gigs. He called the Canberra trial earlier this year through NRL.com, and then he did the Fiji in 13 and Prime Minister's 13 last year over in Fiji. So meeting someone like him who has a bit of experience in terms of like calling those higher end games, like he did some work for, I don't think it was for Hawkesbury. He's done some work for New South Wales Cup though. Like I have seen videos of him on NewSouthWalesRugbyLeague.com doing Jersey Flag, New South Wales Cup. Anytime there's like a rep grand final, he's the guy that they call in. So I don't know what my path is to get to there, but I suppose like that's my next goal. That's my next step, just to keep going with what I'm doing now. Sort of get to know people. Every time someone sort of gives me feedback or gives me some sort of positive words, I'm always like, oh, here's my number. Let me know if there's another gig, or like I'll like trade numbers with them and message them. Hey, is there anything going on in this area or whatever? And just like keep looking up everything and just try to be proactive in that mindset. But having someone like him, who I keep in contact. Like obviously when this first started, the NRL was on and everything, and then we're just trying to keep ourselves busy. So like me, him, there's another guy, Nick Kukiak. We're just like mucking around, commentating, whatever, really. I think Nick was like rolling marbles down the lane and like calling like horses like Rabs used to, just to pass the time. But having someone like, I think he's been in the business 10, 15 years, which frightens me because I'm like, 10, 15 years and like he hasn't really hit the NRL. But it's about that drive. It's not about like, obviously the NRL is a place I want to be, but at the end of the day, it's just about commentating. It's about, showcasing your skill. And if the chance does come up, obviously you're going to have to work hard for it. But if it comes up, then you're like, okay, all this hard work has finally paid off. Because like if I got a job at the NRL today, I'd be like, obviously I'd be stoked, but I'd feel like, okay, so what did I do to earn this? Like not really much. It's about like starting now, or starting when I was 20 years old, working all the way through till I'm 40, and getting there and being like, hey, I worked my ass off for 20 years for not a lot of pay to get to this job. And it's not even about the job or the money or whatever. It's just like it's something that I want to do.
Yeah. So talk to me about the NRL. What's your thoughts on the restart of the season, the new rules?
Honestly, first couple of games were fantastic. The Para Broncos game, I don't think the Broncos played that bad. I think this is the best season. If they want to tweak absolutely anything, even during the season, this is the season to do it. Yeah. I can't really think of any rules off the top of my head, but like we've seen probably 2 or 3 games that weren't blowouts. So like, and those have been the 2 best games. So like the Tigers Sharks, the Panthers Knights, absolute nail biter, and then the Storm Rabbitohs. Although there was a lot of errors and penalties last night, I feel like the fact that it was close made it more interesting and intriguing. But all the other games, like the Roosters Broncos, I don't ever want to turn a game off and I'm like, okay, well the Roosters just like steamrolling kids here. So I think, although it's been a benefit in terms of like the skill level shown, I said this earlier. I don't think, I don't think the Broncos have played bad in their first 2 games, sort of since this. But it's just about it's turning into the NFL a bit. Like not with a stop start, but just like if you have possession and you hold on to the ball and you like. You'll see a lot of teams kicking the in goal a lot more and just like repeat set. It's all about teams training their teams under fatigue. So like maintaining the same skill level that you have at 100% as to like 60%, which again is so hard. And I think that's what we're seeing, teams just absolutely whittling away teams down and be like, all right, they're fatigued and we're like still funky fresh. We're just going to throw the ball around and put 59 points on them. But I definitely think it's a more pleasurable product to watch. It's a lot more fun, a lot more fast. And I think this is the best year to try and share that with the rest of the world. They got that deal. I think it's only a 1-year deal with FS1 over in the States. So a few people in the States get to watch the NRL for the first time. And there's a guy that I follow, Nate Gladden, for the Rugby League in America podcast. He's a massive league fan. And yeah, like even if it wasn't on FS1, he's got whatever the app is that they use. He watches NRL all the time. He loves it. Can't get enough of it. But yeah, it's a really good opportunity for the NRL to branch out. Again, in England, like, I know the Super League's a thing, but it's not going to contend with the Premier League. Yeah. Like, it's about getting into those markets where you're like, okay, we need to strike while the iron's hot. Like, I think last week was the 5th highest ratings, only in Australia, but the 5th highest ratings in Australia ever in the NRL. So, like, you're going to be like, okay, so obviously it's successful. We need to branch out. We need to try and show it in the US. They're showing it in Canada now, England. Like, try and, if there's any of the Pacific nations that they can stream to as well. Obviously, they've got Papua New Guinea, where rugby league is the main sport over there, like the sport that they love. So, yeah, I think they've done. Peter V'landys, like, he copped a lot of flack, but I think he's done a pretty good job sort of getting the sport to where it is, and potentially seeing crowds next week as well, which is awesome. Whether or not it's like Justin Corporate boxes, it doesn't matter. Like, we're getting closer and closer to having crowds. I think the number one goal for this whole project Apollo, and another person that a lot of people are like, oh, Peter V'landys done a good job, or like, oh, the NRL, but no one really sees what the people are doing. It's all about the sport. Wayne Pearce, fantastic job. Like, he had this plan, and he was taking no steps back. He's like, this is what I want to do, and we're going to do it. We're going to do everything that we can to put this in place. And I feel like his goal, obviously, is to have a sellout grand final right at the end of the year. And honestly, if everything goes according to plan, I think he's going to get it. I think we're going to see crowds get bigger and bigger in terms of, social distancing or whatever. And I honestly think, he's going to try. Maybe it's not a sellout. Maybe it's like 60,000, but he wants a big crowd there for the grand final. And I've seen a lot of non-sport people. Obviously, everyone's got their opinion. Everyone's entitled to one, but they're saying, oh, I think the league came back too early, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, I totally agree. If they scrapped the season, that would have been obviously hurtful, but fine with me. But I think as long as they're abiding by guidelines, players getting temperature checks before they come in and out of the stadium, they're doing everything necessary for the sport to continue. And honestly, for all the flack the NRL gets, I think this is the best especially a couple of months ago, the whole bullshit with Todd Greenberg or whatever. This is the most positive I've seen the NRL in quite a long time. And that's saying something.
Yeah, I think the NRL has done a great job, especially on the business side of things, to get the sport up and running again and showing it around the world, because we're like the only sport that's playing. So everyone's tuning in to watch. Yeah,
that's it. And I think a lot of people, it's sort of bad, like, that there's businesses being shut down and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that people don't realize is, like, the NRL is a business as well. It's a sport. Yeah, players get paid probably a bit too much money to play sport, but we're not the NFL. We're not the NBA. We're not MLS. We're not all these sports that have millions and billions of dollars and all these ownerships that are billions of dollars. We're like, what, 10 million, 15 million? Like, I think someone put up that the Golden State Warriors are worth more than the whole sport of rugby league. Like, that's insane to think about. So, like, people want to give the NRL flack, but the NRL is a business at the end of the day, and they're trying to survive. It doesn't matter if, like, we've got COVID and whatever. They're trying to put everything in place to be like, we need to get this back up and running, because if we don't, you won't have rugby league as a sport professionally for the next 5-10 years. Like, that was a realistic outlook.
Yeah, and I think if they didn't come back, I think the sport would have been tarnished for a bit.
Yeah. Well, people would be like, "Oh, why is it like the A League?" I think the NRL is bigger than the A League in terms of the sport. But what teams? I think Melbourne City's sort of part funded by Manchester City. So, like, EPL teams or teams overseas could be like, oh, A-League, don't worry, we've got your back. You're a part of the sport bubble. We can sort of fund you for a while and keep the sport going. The NRL doesn't have that. We're the biggest league in the sport in Australia. So, like, it's, hunt or be hunted sort of. Like, the NRL has to, like, put their foot forward and do what they can to survive. And up until this point, they've done a really good job, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, I see a very bright future and a really good year of footy. Like, I've watched every game. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, some teams, it's going to take a few weeks to get up to the quickness of the game. But after that, it's going to be a really good contest.
Yeah, and it's not about being overly negative as well. Like, I could have watched that game against the Knights and be like, oh, Penrith, they could have won. They could have. But it wasn't about, oh, Panthers lost or Panthers drew or whatever. It was about, holy shit, the Knights, without Mitchell Pearce, a premiership winning halfback,
Watson.
without Ponga, without Watson, without all these guys, with pretty much a rookie head coach in Adam O'Brien, come in to a neutral ground, but come in against Penrith, who was pretty good over the first 2 weeks, and they hung in there, man. And like the defensive effort on a couple of those sets was just, we didn't throw like a lot at the Knights, but when we did throw something like, kick out down a short side or whatever, that they were up to the task. And not even that, but just like making sure they scored the points. It's all well and good. We've seen with the Bulldogs for a number of years that you can defend all you like, but if you can't score points, you're not going to win games at the end of the day. So, like, not only defending their line, but also getting down the other end of the field with pretty much rookies. Like, Tex Hoy played really well on the weekend as well.
Great player.
Yeah, like I hope to see more of him. Unfortunately, in this sport, Callum Ponga comes back and you feel like those guys that are one-hit wonders. They don't play for a while. I remember when Teddy made his debut. I think he played on the wing. If correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
In 2012. And that was the game that he played. His first game, played about 13 minutes. I'm like, God, this guy, he's really something. Like, and that was 13 minutes in. He carried the ball like 4 or 5 times. He just looked really good. Tore his ACL. And for a lot of players, that's career done. You're like, oh, I know it's so young, but you're like, oh, is he really going to make first grade again? So it's about taking your opportunities. And Hoy's got another opportunity. I think they play tomorrow against Canberra. Coming off the bench, and I hope for his sake that he just keeps getting on. He said, "I don't care where I play. I don't care if I play fullback, centre, prop forward. Put me in the forwards. I'll take it up." It's just about him getting that opportunity to go back on the field, represent the Knights, and work hard for his opportunity.
Yeah. So, from what you've seen so far, what clubs and players do you see dominating?
It's hard to say, really. Like, I'm so hard on Penrith. Like, we did beat the Warriors 26-0, but honestly, I would have taken the first half effort against the Knights over that whole game against the Warriors. Like, I think we played pretty poor. And yeah, we do have Cleary coming back next week, but I don't know. I just don't think the combinations are there. I think it's been a real wake up call for the Storm. Although they did play well in the back end of last night's game, I think they're going to take a while to adjust. The Roosters, they're the Roosters. Like, I think they'll be there or thereabouts. But I don't know. I said the Knights, like, not just based off that performance last week, but if they get Pearce, Ponga, all these guys back, they're the sort of team. Like, I'm pretty sure Adam O'Brien was the former assistant coach at Melbourne. So, like, he's been under Craig Bellamy for so long. I think it's going to be either them or Parramatta. And if we get a Parramatta Knights grand final, like, mark down this podcast to be like, I mean, he must be Nostradamus. He must be like telling the future. But honestly, I think the Knights have been building for a very long time. Obviously, the dark days of like Nathan Brown coming in and rebuilding their team pretty much from scratch. Like, Sione Matautsi's been at the club, 5-6 years now, and he's sort of like hanging around. But just the ability to bring these players like Connor Watson, Mitchell Pearce, Callum Ponga, they got Jaden Brayley. And honestly, if they had Jaden Brayley in there, I think they'd be definite top 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, Parramatta's the other one. Every time I watch Parramatta, they're just they look like a premiership team. Their bench is incredible. Reid Marnie at 22 years of age, looking to be the next hooker of Queensland after Cameron Smith sort of goes away. I think Gutherson played really well last week. Interested to see how he goes today. Like, people give him a lot of flack because he, asked for all this money, but I think he played really well. And then, like, how can you stop Sevo and Ferguson? Like, it's just a very, very well-rounded team. Those are my two teams. And obviously Canberra. I think the most interesting team heading into this season was Canberra because they made it through the grand final. People say they could have won the grand final. Whatever happened with that call, at the end of the day, the Roosters won. They won back-to-back. You can't change the past. But, all this pressure on George Williams coming in the NRL and the history of English outside, I know halves aren't outside backs, but, non-forwards coming into the NRL and not being that successful. There's a lot of pressure on George Williams coming in, pretty much the same team. Like, they've got Rapana back now, that only minus Leilua. And,
Scott.
Say what you will. I think Curtis Scott's probably better in terms of, like, consistency. Like, Leilua drifts in and out of games. But the big change was, like, Aiden Caesar coming out, George Williams coming in, and people were like, oh, the Raiders, they're not going to make the A. George Williams is shit, blah, blah, blah. And I know it's only 3 games in, but watching George Williams from when he debuted in Wigan, 2014, I think it was, and he's played for England, and under Sean Wayne, he's not the same player as he was in Wigan. He's like similar, but I think Ricky Stewart, honestly, has done a fantastic job getting these Englishmen, because, like, I know a few people watch the Super League, but, like, I try and watch it as religiously as I can, but these guys like Graham and Burgess and everything, sort of household names, like, on the cusp, and then they're like, oh, we'll go over to the NRL. And that's how they've been so successful. That's the same with Luke Thompson, who's coming over next year as well to join the Bulldogs. But with a lot of the outside backs, the reason that, probably outside of Zach Hardacre, guys like Joe Burgess, he's probably on the upper echelon as well, but guys like him, Greg Eden, Callum Watkins was a bit of a flop. Sam Tompkins is a funny one, actually. No, honestly, I think his first year in the NRL, people, I don't know where people said that he was the only reason he was a failure is he was compared to Billy Slater and he was on way too much money. If he was on half the pay and there was no comparison, especially that first year, he scored 13 tries and had like 13 to 14 try assists. Like, if a rookie comes in, right, and he does that at fullback, you're like, oh, holy shit, this guy's got something. But because he had a reputation of, he's the English Billy Slater, we're going to put him on all this money, people were expecting him and Johnson to carry the Warriors to the promised land. You go back and watch that Nines tournament that him and Johnson had, that's the most fun I've had watching league in probably the last 6 years. Like, that was incredible. And then 2014, he started okay and then got injured at the back end and then just, went back off. But yeah, it was disappointing for the money that he was on. But if he was on half the pay, I think people would be like, hey, you remember that one year that Sam Tompkins came to the NRL and he carved up and then, like, he went back to England, he was injured. Like, oh, man, that was a pretty good year. And you compare him to Zach Hardacre, who is arguably a better player than Sam Tompkins, came over to the Panthers, didn't even really play. I think he played one game of fullback. He was off the bench. He was playing in the centres. And, like, I've seen Zach Hardacre at his best. He's probably, I don't want to, like, pump him up, but, like, easily top 10 fullbacks in the world when he's on song. Like, if you're talking about players right now, talent-wise especially, like, I'd probably love Tompkins, Hardacre, maybe even Kevin Locke. I don't know where he is, but talented as hell. But yeah, he just came over. Like, the signing made no sense. If he was going to a place that needed a fullback, 100% I would have been like, yes, this is a great place. But, like, we had Dylan Edwards. I think we signed him because we weren't sure what was going to happen, but there was no long-term plan for Zach Hardacre. If they were like, Hardacre is going to be the fullback for the next 3 years at Penrith, I would have taken that. And, you give him time, but it doesn't really work out like that. But I feel like with George Williams and the rest of these English players, Hodgson, Elliot Whitehead, Ryan Sutton, John Bateman, how well did he play last year? We won't focus on, what's happening right now because I feel like a lot of people don't know the situation until John Bateman says this is what's happening or whatever. Like, people just need to back off. But yeah, like, Elliot Whitehead came from Hull KR. Didn't really have any much buzz about him. I said a couple of days ago, Josh Hodgson coming out of the Super League to the NRL was probably a top 10 dummy half, but he wasn't even starting at Hull KR. He had Sean Lunt starting ahead of him. He got guys like James Roby, who compared to Cameron Smith, and probably a fair comparison in terms of like play style. But Hodgson wasn't even a top 5 hooker in the Super League, and he comes over and he's carving up in the NRL. I just feel like Ricky Stewart, his coaching style fits the way that English players play. And I would have loved to see someone like Alex Walmsley or like a really McCarthy Scarsbrook, like a really notable English prop forward, come over to the Raiders and see how they go. Like Ryan Sutton played a few games last year, looked pretty good, but I don't think he's going to be a starting forward. Like get like an in-form, like 24, 25 years of age guy to come over to Canberra, and I guarantee you'd be a top 5 prop in the comp.
So why do you think English forwards do better than English backs?
I think it's a forwards game at the NRL. It might not look that way, but if you don't have a good forward pack, I don't think you do well in this league. I mean, the Raiders proved me wrong last year. Papali came out, he was a star. I looked at their side at the start. I'm like, Dynamis Louis is not a starting forward. He's not a starting prop forward, but he played pretty well as well. And a rotation of him, Soliola, Corey Horsburgh came in. I just thought they weren't that good and they were too young. But again, teams can prove you wrong. Who's the side opposite? There's a side out there. Oh, South Sydney. I don't think their forward pack's great at all. Like, no. Compared to last year, you don't lose John Sutton, Sam Burgess, George Burgess, and get better. I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm just saying it's a significant downgrade from last year. And for the English boys, for the English players, it's much the same. Like, I feel like the reason why English outside backs don't do so well is like our outside backs are much more like in the game. So like, take Adokar, for example. When he was at the Tigers and in his first year at Melbourne, all he was known for was speed. And that's great. Speed's a great asset to have. But in this game of rugby league that we know today, it's not just about being quick and on the wing. You can't be Todd Byrne. You can't just stand out there, catch the ball, score a try. It's about, coming in to help out your forwards, running out of the dummy half really well, defending really well, a mixture of all those things. And I feel like that's not what the English game is catered for. So you'll see that they're very good attacking wise in terms of like inside the opponent's half. So a lot of nice quick passing, like you saw with Sam Tompkins. But when it comes to getting out of their defensive half, like, Callum Watkins, that's not him. He's a flashy guy. He's not one of those tough guys. I really want Ryan Hall to succeed from over the Sydney Roosters because, again, like someone like him, you don't dominate the Super League for 10 years and, people seem to like have amnesia and forget that he played against Australia before. He's had good games against Australia before. It's just like coming over to the NRL. It's a completely different beast because you got to work hard. And I feel like although he did that for Leeds, again, you're playing up against better opposition, fitter opposition, stronger opposition. And it's just like an adjustment period. And I mean, granted, if he came over like 5 to 7 years earlier, I think he'd be a much better player. But like he's 33, 34, like good signing. But I was like, he's a bit past his prime. Like he nowhere near even 2015 Ryan Hall. If he came over, like it would have been interesting. But I think it's a forwards game, and I think the English forward, it's just like roll down with your forwards. You're not really getting much help from your outside backs. But that's like, if you do, that's where you hear like, Tommy Makinson's the best winger, or Josh Charnley for the last, probably not for the last 3 years, but like back in his days in Wigan before he went over to Union, he was the best winger in the Super League. Not only did he score 150 tries in 150 games, but it's just that ability to go, all right, my forwards are tired, I've got to go in and do the hard yards. And I don't think a lot of outside backs do that over in England, so I think that's why they struggle over here.
So, is your grand final prediction Knights Eels or?
Lock it in. It's probably not going to happen, but hey, look, I've said it now. Lock it in. The other teams that could probably be there, obviously the Roosters. Can they go back to back to back? It's going to be hard, but Manly. I think Manly's another team.
Yes, I love Manly.
It's not even the quality. Like they're outside back. Outside of Tom Trbojevic, honestly, their 3/4 line for name value is not great. Brad Parker, Moses Sully, Ruben Garrick, Des Hasler's put all these guys together. George DeFeo, obviously, the hitman. He's probably the second best in that list. But, like you put these names together and Desi's like, all right, we're just going to pay you minimum money. Just go out there. And he's got this knack of building like a no-frills sort of team. Good spine. I think if they had a better nine, I'm not knocking Danny Levi, but if Manasi Fainu was still there, man, they would be dangerous. Or if they signed Isaac Luke, I don't know if he could still go at his age. He's meant to be playing for the Dragons, but I don't know what's happening there. But yeah, like it's a forward pack that just rolls on, and I don't know. It's so hard to explain. Like the outside backs just get their job done. They're not flashy. Tafua just comes out and hits you, but yeah, they just like inside their own half. They just work hard. I think Trebojevic, who a lot of people rate Trebojevic highly, and I've been on the sort of like on the fence about him and Nathan Cleary because they are so young, and I don't think they've shown the explosiveness as like Pappenhausen showed last year. But I think if there's a year for Tommy Turbo to prove me wrong, it's this year. And I think over the last three games, he's definitely shown me, yeah, I'm here to stay. I'm the Manly fullback for the next 10 years. And I mean, if you ask me now, who's been better in their Manly career, Brett Stewart or Tom Trbojevic, I'm still going to say Brett Stewart. Like Brett Stewart was one of the best fullbacks Manly's had, in my opinion. But yeah, Trbojevic, he'll get there one day, I hope. But yeah, Manly's one of those other teams. Is there any others? All the rest of the teams are just sort of like there or thereabouts. The finals will be fun. Cowboys are probably a team that surprised me.
Yeah, they've been playing.
I think they can be improved. Like Ben Hampton is a good player, but he's not a winger. Nowhere near a winger. But it's just like, okay, we've got this guy. We don't know where to play him. We don't really have another winger. Let's just put you out there. I'd rather see a winger play wing, but like, hey, as long as he's not getting peppered under the high ball, I can't question Paul Green's coaching. Like he's done a decent job. And for the spoon, yeah, probably the Dragons. Like honestly, I don't. I don't know what it is. I've got a soft spot for the Titans. I have had over the last couple of years. Probably the year before Jared Hayne joined them. There was a year, maybe 2017, 2018, where they were like third in the comp for points. And they didn't make the finals, but they were just like electric. And for some reason, every time I watch a Titans game, like you can ask any of my close mates, I love the Titans. I don't know what it is. Fodawaker is easily one of the best young forwards in the comp. Name value, they should be in the top 8, but like with guys like Kevin Proctor, Shannon Boyd, Bryce Cartwright, all these guys that have played rep footy. But for some reason, it's just not there. But I hope that Justin Holbrook, it's hard for a new coach to come in to a team like the Titans and like pretty much he's going to have to completely rebuild them from the ground up. But I saw positive sides from Jordan Pereira. Is it Jordan Pereira? No, Jonas Pearson last week. He like intercepted the ball and just like kept doing that. But I think, yeah, it's just about getting these young pieces. AJ Brimson's not there. He's a pretty good player. And just like building there, you got to get players to want to come to the Gold Coast. Again, it's never really helped. It's never really happened in the sport for the last 20 years. Like all the Gold Coast franchises that there's been, even the Gold Coast Suns, I'm pretty sure there was a Gold Coast A-League team at one point. The Gold Coast is not a desirable location for players to be because let's be honest, there's 3 things to do in the Gold Coast: drink, do drugs, and play footy or play sport. Yeah. So, if they're not playing good footy, there's 2 things that they're probably doing. It's never been a good location for sport. So personally, like they're talking about this new Brisbane team coming in 2022. If anything, relocate the Titans up to there. Like, don't get rid of the Titans, just relocate them. And they were talking about Brisbane Firehawks or something being the team name. I dig it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of players go to Gold Coast for the money and for the lifestyle. They don't really care about the footy.
Yeah, that's it. And that's where, players like Anthony Don sort of come through. He probably not on a lot of money, but he just wants to play footy.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the Titans. And like that's why all these young guys that are coming up, like Fodawaker, I'm like, oh man, everyone that comes there, I'll rattle off a few names like Nathan Peets, Bryce Cartwright, Probably Mitch Rain you could throw in there. Shannon Boyd, like you said, Tyrone PG come in on a good wage. You know, we don't really know what's going on, but they're not the player that they once were. And I think a lot of that too is because they're a big name player coming to a franchise that has struggled over the last couple of years. There's a lot of pressure on them to perform. Ash Taylor being another one of them. I know he's got youth on his side. He's like 23, 24, but coming over for the Broncos and the Tigers just threw $1 million at him. Like that. That's why I'm worried about Fa'asuamala. I used to be able to say it. Tino Fa'asuamala.
He's a good player.
That's not. It's not right. I know how to say it sometimes, and then sometimes I don't know if you know, I've got dyslexia. So like sometimes I'll say something like if I'm reading a book, right, I'll read it and then I'll read the same sentence over about 2 or 3 times. I'm like, hang on, Rabs, think, use your brain. But yeah, him going over to the Gold Coast Titans, I'm worried. Like, great player, great pickup. And there's talks that they could be signing Dave Fafita as well for the Broncos, who hasn't yet re-signed. Nice. So, I mean, good signings for the Titans, but the young players on the go. Yeah, that's it. I mean, Dave Fafita, he said that his mum's making his decisions. I'm like, okay, so what, if your mum wants to go to the Gold Coast, you're just like, oh, yeah, sweet, whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, obviously money's important for these guys to like, they want to give back to their families.
Yeah.
Although it's not in terms of like the NFL where they're like, oh, hey, mum, go build a 40-acre house elsewhere, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, at the end of the day, they want to work hard to get to their dream to be in the NRL and to give back to their family. Well, at least that's what I hope. But it's about also getting in there, working hard, playing good footy, and like representing you're a part of a brand.
Yeah.
So, you know, whether it's on the field or off the field, you want to represent that brand in a good light.
Well, that's been a good chat, man. Thank you for giving me your time to come on.
No worries. No. Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure, man. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yeah. Where can the listeners find you to listen to your commentating?
Oh, to the commentary. I'll share links on all socials. So hopefully July 1, I think they're going to sort of have a look and see if they can start up any of the competitions. So it'll all be on newsouthwalesrugbyleague.com. But if you add me on any of my socials at Rabs Reborn, pretty much across everything, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook is just James Robertson. But yeah, if you add me on any of those, anytime we do anything commentary, it might even be from the past. Like I've just added a couple of things to TikTok and Instagram. I'm just trying to like refresh some stuff. But yeah, add me on any of the socials there. Rabs Reborn.
Sweet. Cheers for coming on, man.
No worries. Take care.
See ya.